Her not wanting to do much is basically her not wanting to ride, because she seems like she's always horny. Like, it's hard for me to keep up with
Pretty
it.
much, yeah. Unless I'm just tired.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. My name is Nicoletta Heidegger and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California, and I specialize in sex therapy. I also host a podcast called Sluts and Scholars.
I am Kisses. I'm an award-winning adult actress, cam model, and producer as well.
My name is Kylie LeBeau and I'm an adult actress and cam model.
All right, today we are going to be talking about libido or desire discrepancies, meaning when your desires and libido doesn't line up with your partner. And so there's a couple things that I would love to go over for you listeners so you can hopefully track this conversation a little better. So I'm not a huge fan of the word libido. It's a bit of a misnomer. So I like to break it down a little more like this. So we experience desire and arousal sometimes separately, sometimes together. So arousal is just the body's physiological response to stimuli. All this means is that, like, when something happens, your body may potentially have your nervous system turn on and start to become aroused to something. That doesn't necessarily mean sexually. It could be like if you get scared or excited about something else, a certain part of your nervous system turns on, your heart starts to beat a little bit, you start to get a little flush, your breath starts to shallow a little bit. This is physical arousal. Desire, on the other hand, is like the body and the brain of, like, I want to do this thing. Sometimes arousal happens with desire, and sometimes they don't happen together. What this can look like is sometimes our body becomes physically aroused, even when we don't want something. This is really important for consent because that means that just hardness, wetness, pleasure, orgasm on the body, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody wants to do the thing. And then the reverse is also true. Sometimes we can experience desire without arousal. And that looks like, I really, really want to have sex, but I'm not getting hard, or I'm not getting as wet or as lubricated as I want to. So this is really important here because both of these are super key parts in thinking about libido and what we really want to do. So is this new information for y'all, or do you feel like you've been able to kind of like experience that in your real-time sex life?
I feel like it's kind of common sense for us to kind of navigate through that, especially with our background and experience, our different background experiences and the way that we've kind of grown up.
Yeah.
But we definitely have different libidos, I guess, or arousal points at different times, and navigating those can be somewhat difficult for the both of us, because I mean there could be times where I'm super turned on and she might not, she might be tired, or I could be, could be, the roles could be reversed where I just got done working and I necessarily can't just get hard again, but she's in the mood to go again. So
and I'm on birth control, so I get like spikes in arousal, so we also have to play into that, so that usually I'm extremely, I've got that I guess arousal sensation as well as desire, but I mean some days I'll have times when I don't really want to do much of anything, so it's just basically on a day-to-day basis, I guess.
Yeah.
Her not wanting to do much is basically her not wanting to ride, because she seems like she's always horny. Like, it's hard for me to keep up with
Pretty
it.
much, yeah. Unless I'm just tired.
So that's more of like a side-by-side day or like a mutual masturbation kind of day, not riding day.
Yeah, I love mutual masturbation.
That's more like me eating her out type of day.
It's a pillow princess day. Yeah.
You're
Okay,
a pillow princess too, though.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if you see my cam shows, you already know.
And everyone should definitely check out y'all's work because it's great. I'm so glad you said that because I really want people listening to, if you're experiencing a arousal or desire discrepancy from your partner, to really know that like you are normal. And I'm right now talking to, I don't know if you two would define yourself this way, but like I'm talking to sexual athletes and professionals, right? People who like get to have a lot of experiences in this. And if they struggle sometimes with things not aligning perfectly in terms of desire and arousal, you will too. It is so normal to have a libido, desire, arousal discrepancy in a relationship. And unless you're dating an exact replica of yourself, you are going to be experiencing wanting something different, potentially with a different frequency at a different time than your partner most of the time. I don't think it's been very rare, if ever, that I've ever met a friend, colleague, partner, client that lined up exactly. Have you two ever met anyone who like lined up exactly?
Well, we're pretty much aligned. We're pretty much aligned.
I would say we're pretty much aligned, but as far as meeting someone similar who, no. Or someone that could keep up, no. But I mean, everyone's definitely different and everyone's going to experience lulls. So yeah, I definitely want to normalize the fact that, you know, not everyone's constantly having 24/7 horny sex. But yeah, we are sexual athletes, so we do put ourselves in precarious situations, different situations, I should say. And so yeah, we're pretty experienced.
I think having sex is healthy for a relationship though, and vocalizing that is and your wants and your needs is something that is important, and I think that goes along the lines of consent as well. But we definitely do. We're not exactly like every time that she's horny, I'm horny too. But we do tend to. We're synced up pretty well with the things that we like to do. I think that's why we mesh so well together. But not everybody's like that, and there are compromises that we make, and you might, you know, as a viewer, might be making yourself and might want to step in a direction to be more open-minded, to have a more healthy relationship with your partner.
And also one more thing, everyone's body is so vastly different. Mm-hmm. So that can also affect your hormone levels, you know, and arousal and desire as well. So just another note.
Yes, thank you for saying that. So another thing that I really want to like educate listeners on around this is the difference between spontaneous and responsive desire. I don't know if you all have heard about this, but it's so key, and I have to teach this to like most of my clients. A lot of folks don't know about this, but spontaneous desire is kind of like what it sounds like. The wind blows and you're like, I have a boner, I'm ready to go. Like nothing really in particular happens. It feels more spontaneous, and desire and arousal are kind of happening at the same time. Responsive desire is more true, especially for cisgendered women in long-term relationships. But I see it across genders and across relationship styles as well. But I see it a little bit more for like estrogen-driven folks. And responsive desire looks more like, I don't necessarily think about sex during the day. I'm not really like spontaneously thinking about it or in the mood. And so what can happen is you have that spontaneous person who's maybe trying to initiate, and the responsive person is like, what the fuck? Like, why are you trying to come on to me when I'm like brushing the dog? And so then there can be an issue that happens. So for the responsive people, they often don't experience desire, meaning the I want to do this, until their body starts to become physically aroused. And what it takes for their body to be open to becoming aroused may look different. They may need to be like, okay, I need to feel relaxed before, I need to make sure the house is clean, and then I'm open to connecting with my partner. And then once they start connecting with their partner, their body starts to become aroused, and then they're like, oh wait, I remember this can be pleasurable and fun. Now I want to do this. And so a lot of times I see that in the past, research on like libido and stuff has often been done by men and for men, cisgendered men at least. And so what happened there is that we see these results in old, like incorrect research that shows that like men want sex more. But in reality, it was just looking at people who have spontaneous desire as opposed to responsive desire. So for the responsive people, they may want things just as much, but what it takes for them to get there and to be open to the idea of getting turned on takes a little more time, a little more patience, a little more play. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just different. So it sounds like both of you kind of feel like you connect and can meet each other there, but has there ever been a time or times that you can think of when one of you wanted something and the other wasn't maybe interested initially, and kind of how did you navigate that to get what you both wanted?
I mean, instances where I'm always extremely horny on my period, but those are not instances where we like engage. But for some reason, that's when I'm like most horniest. But in the beginning of our relationship, I think because we were like, exploring one another, we would play around. But I guess now it's not really something that we do. It's just a little messy. Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily. We mainly have sex on camera.
Yeah.
And then because we do, I mean we're sex workers, so that's mainly what we do. So
we stream daily, almost daily on Chatterbait. So. Yeah.
So I feel like on those days I'm more masturbating solo on webcam.
Oh yeah. That's what we kind of. Yeah, she's masturbating on webcam, and then I
mean, I'll swim around in the Crimson Sea. I got no problem, but I mean, yeah, I think it's more of like a work thing. Yeah. I don't think we have like, because like I'm always up for having sex. I don't think I'm more of like I don't think it's like an I forgot how you phrase it, like
spontaneous or responsive.
No, I'm not a responsive arousal. I'm spontaneous arousal. I'm just arousal. Arousal, yes, that's me. Like I'm always horny. So I feel like if because when you were saying like, oh, if the wind blows the wrong way, you can get horny, and I'm like, for me, it's like car rides. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like if I hit a bump wrong, my dick's hard. I don't know. So I feel like as far as like responsive arousal, maybe more for anal for me. Like sometimes I could not be in the mood, but then when we're like in the middle of having sex on camera and she starts like playing with my asshole, I'm like damn, I kind of want to get fucked now. I feel like that's more responsive for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to like sort of start to get to relax and start to feel pleasure before you're like, it's not always an immediate yes.
Yeah. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not really feeling it, and then once we start initiating, I'm like, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, the way that I often see it with clients is people find themselves usually in a relationship where one person is spontaneous and one person is responsive. This is what I see more often than not. It sounds like you both have like really aligned, but I think this happens because sometimes we're attracted to like our opposite, and often we don't see each other's styles until the newness of the relationship has like faded a little bit, and that new relationship energy, those new hormones fade. And so at the beginning it seems like there's alignment, and then after some time the responsive person kind of gets a little more into their responsive, and the spontaneous person stays in their spontaneous, and then they're sort of like, why don't you like what I like, how I like it? And so it's okay if you're with somebody who's opposing, but you're gonna have to figure out how to navigate that. But it is pretty normal from what I see. And one way that I like to help folks with this, and maybe we could even look it up together and like share what each other's are. Have you all heard of something called erotic blueprints?
No. Yeah.
Okay, so there's this sex educator named Miss Jaya, and her partners have sort of come up with this concept called erotic blueprints. And it's basically like your personality type and style, kind of like love languages, but for sex and erotic style. And so it helps people kind of look at what is their style? What does it sort of take for them to be like open to connecting? Because a lot of times what I see is people think that there's this misalignment, and then people put each other in a box of like high libido, low libido. But in fact, there's just so many different things, Kylie, kind of like you were saying earlier, that can affect our desire and arousal. Everything from hormones to stress to sleep to what's happening in our life to age to how our body's functioning. There are so many things that affect our desire and arousal patterns. And so I really discourage people from just being like, oh, I'm high libido or I'm low libido, because it's so much more complex. And I think Erotic Blueprints helps with that. Would y'all be down to look them up, and then we could share what ours are and listeners can go look at theirs together too?
Yeah,
let's look
sure.
this up right now.
So for listeners out there, if you would like to read along with us, we're going to have a link below where you can look this up. You can also check out Miss Jaya's website, and they have like a quiz and stuff you could take, but I love doing this with clients. So if you scroll down, you're welcome to read the whole thing, but just for the purpose of this, scroll down to the part that says, what are the 5 erotic blueprints? And then what are the shadow sides for each? So take a minute, pause your video, for those of you listening, and read this and see if you can figure out what your primary type is and what your partner's type might be if you have a partner. And for a lot of folks, they might not always fit just into one box. Like I said, I'm not a fan of putting people into a box, but see which one you feel like might be more your primary thing that you vibe with. So the first part is, what's your blueprint? And the second part is the shadow side, which doesn't necessarily mean the bad side. It's just kind of like the piece that maybe you might struggle with.
I think I kind of border too for the
tell us about it.
So I think as far as like types go, I would definitely say I'm a good mix between the shapeshifter type and the sensual type. And I say that because I love pleasing my partner and partners, because I'm a sex worker as well, acting. But I also can really connect with the sensual type. I am very aroused by the senses. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with autonomous sensory meridian response. But
tell listeners about that.
So this is ASMR. So autonomous sensory meridian response is basically using all of your senses, and it's basically like a therapeutic or a form of therapy as well, ASMR, and it can tend to touch, hearing, mostly. And so that's definitely what I can connect with as far as this, because it says the sensual type is someone who loves taste, smell. Yeah, that definitely is something that gets me going. And then the shapeshifter type, I can just mold myself into anything, basically. Mm-hmm. What are your types?
I feel like I'm 4 types. I'm an energetic, sexual, kinky shapeshifter. I feel like that kind of describes me, because I like...
You like it all.
Yeah, I just like sex in general. I mean, the sensual. I mean, I love sensuality. It just doesn't need a it's not like a main component of what I look for in sex. So that's the only thing that I wouldn't say describes me perfectly. But I could get down with the sensual type too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's up?
I love being licked all over.
Yeah, you're just like you're trying it. You're like, I like it all.
Yeah. I'm like, yes. What's your type? Yes. Sex.
Yes.
Sex. Is my type.
I love that. Yeah, I'm sort of the sensual and the kinky as my master ones, but I agree. I definitely find parts of all of them that I like. And some people have one that they feel like they are totally aligned with, and that is like the only thing for them. But I really would invite you, especially if you have a partner, to like read through this or take that quiz and see what your style is and what your partner's style is, because I sort of think of it as like a language that we speak. So if any of you listeners have like heard about love languages, it's kind of like that. So like if I'm speaking the sensual language, but you're a kinky language, you might not understand how I'm speaking to you or what I need and what I want. And we might not be having the kind of sex that I would ideally like to have. Versus if you can kind of learn each other's sexual language and blueprint and sexual style, you're probably going to figure out how to align more and have not just maybe increased amounts, but more quality types of sex. The way I heard it sort of described to me by the people who founded this was like, if you play violin and your partner plays clarinet, if you like don't know how the other person plays and you try to make music together, it might sound kind of shitty at first, but if you like learn each other's kind of music, you can make beautiful music together, but you just have to be like willing to learn each other's styles. So like, you know, Kylie, if you're saying that you're sensual and like Casey is trying to come at you with like some kind of energy vibes and you're like, what the fuck is that? it sounds like in your real relationship you'd be like, okay, I'm down for whatever. But for some people it's like it doesn't align, and so it's really important to know what your language is and what your partner's is, and then the main key that I see is being willing to learn each other's and practice each other's, so that it can align a little bit more. All right, the last piece of this before we move on. A lot of times people feel like their partner is maybe low libido, but really it just turns out that they're not having the kind of sex they want to be having or sex worth having. So there's a researcher named Peggy Kleinplatz, and she talks a lot about having sex worth having, because it's like, who would want to have sex that's shitty to that person, right? So I'd love to hear from you two. It sounds like a lot of experiences feel worth it, but what do you feel like is sex that's worth having to both of you?
I just, that's hard for me because I just like having sex with her.
Yeah. Well, for me, I find that sex where we're, you know, because we do it for work, but sex where we're looking each other in the eyes, kind of deeply connected. As much as I do love sex on camera, I feel like off camera we have a lot, you know, there's a lot more range. Like we don't have to open for the camera, and we can be more into one another and kind of forget about, you know, I mean, there is no camera there, but we can just kind of lose ourselves in one another, and that's what I really enjoy.
I could agree with that. Having like a cum shot without having to hold a camera would be nice, you know? But, you know, there's, it is a double-edged sword because there's sometimes where I'll masturbate off camera, or, I wouldn't use our sex between us as an example for this, but I'll like masturbate off camera, I'll come and I'm like, fuck, I just spilled $300, you know?
Where I was going.
I know, and I'm like, fuck, if I, okay, let me just pull out a phone, you know, my phone, I can record this, you know, might as well. But then it does bring up things like, oh, well, we have to be open and we really can't close off. Like, for you viewers, if you ever, you know, watching adult work, that's not normally how we have sex. And you could obviously see when the cameras are, you know, cameras are constantly changing angles. We're taking breaks and there's people telling us, oh, well, we need this, and the lighting's being
more
adjusted.
Light, open for camera. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like sex that we would necessarily have or can be as intimate and closed off and making out. Like if my hair is covering her face, they're going to tell me, oh, whip your hair around, and you know, when in the middle of having sex, you don't want in some instances a fucking stranger telling you to stop and you know how to position yourself. So it definitely is a different experience and more sensual, and I feel like it is better sex off camera.
Oh yeah, well I know this is kind of like maybe a side tangent, but it feels really important. How do you feel like you do balance sex that's just for you two or for yourself versus sex for work?
That's it's hard. It's hard to kind of balance that, because like I said, like we're very spontaneous, especially being I don't want to say just in the adult, being entertainers.
Yeah,
we're getting our schedules are they're very flexible because we do work from home. What we do mainly is webcam. It's our biggest thing. Yeah, it's our bread and butter. But we do a wealth of other different things. We try to do so many different things. So our schedule is completely packed. And amongst one of the biggest things on our schedule is sex, because you know we're setting up our shows. To balance it, I mean, I feel like it's just kind of to kind of schedule it out, to say like, oh hey, well, on these days we're gonna have sex like this. I feel like it's not as organic as we would like it to be. So it's always about reading your partner and saying, hey, like, oh, well, we've been doing this, and I mean, I could use a kick in the pants sometimes because I enjoy it as, probably the most, being on cam. But it is something that can come up as a problem if you are in a relationship where you're both sex workers and just, solely relying on having sex with each other for income. Yeah, and I could definitely see that.
It's definitely important to have some alone time.
Yeah, it's good that we could read each other, though. That's what we're really lucky that we mesh so well. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm really lucky that we mesh so well because we could read each other and we communicate. Communication is a huge thing. Like, if we're having too much sex on camera, she's gonna let me know.
Yeah, I let her know. She'll
let me know, and I will say, I'll say, okay, well, let me take this as a sign to, like, not schedule a day, but let me be more receptive to the way that she feels and be more catering to her feelings because I love her and I want to be around her for a long time.
Yeah, Casey, what do you feel like helps you receive that feedback and not, like, get defensive?
Oh, I'm hard to. I wouldn't get offended and especially if it's the way that you approach somebody. Like, don't come at me. Like I'm a really chill person, and especially if it's over sex. Like, yeah, like I'll make some time for that. I'll move mountains for the people I love. I could move a cam show, so I could eat a pussy. Like, get real.
What do you think maybe allowed you to prioritize this or, like, find somebody who did align? Because, like I said, I don't think it's a necessity, I don't think it's a necessity for folks to have the same blueprint, for folks to both be spontaneous. You can work with that. You can definitely work around that. That's what I help people with as a sex therapist. Sex coaches help with that as well. And all it takes is kind of a willingness and a respect, and kind of like what you were saying, Casey, like, I love this person and I want to show up for them. And it seems like you two have found someone who aligns with you. And I think a lot of people sometimes don't prioritize alignment when it comes to sex. And I don't know what that's about. I think it's hard to find everything, almost impossible to find everything we want in one person. But what do you think helped you to figure out if you were aligned sexually, and how much was that a part of your, like, deciding to be together?
Do you want to start?
I think it was pretty easy, at least for me. I knew we were kind of on the same page sexually. I think upon first meeting, like, I just kind of got a sense for who she was, and as well as her, telling me who she is, which, obviously consent and talking is huge. So it was pretty apparent once I met her. We were pretty much on the same page sexually, very horny people. But yeah, that's not going to happen in every instance. So that's not, I don't think that that's normal.
So, but there was like a little speed bump or hiccup. There was some not a speed bump or hiccup, but an uncertainty because I was dating men or trans women when I met her, and I was like, oh well, I don't, and she's like, oh, well, are you sure that you want a long-term relationship with a cisgender woman? And I was like, it's communication, really. I was like, well, as long as my needs are met, as long as I get fucked in the ass, like I'm cool. And luckily for me, she fucks like a pro. So and she's totally fine.
Oh yeah, we have we
bringing in a third sometimes. Yeah.
I can only do so much.
Yeah, a real cock dildo is still a dildo. A real cock is like a
real cock.
It's a penis.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point before we wrap up, which is that I think a lot of people, if they're in partnership, they kind of can depend on their partner for their pleasure. And I think it's really important to not let your partner be your gatekeeper to pleasure. So maybe you're really aligned in a lot of ways like Casey and Kylie are, but you might be more in the majority where you maybe aren't aligned in that way. And so if you're sort of waiting for your partner to be the one to turn you on and to be the bringer of pleasure and to do all the things for you, you might always be unfulfilled. And so if you make sure to take that time to like tend to your own blueprint, to make sure to have a good sexual relationship with yourself and figure out other ways to get some of those needs met and make sure that you're making time for your own pleasure, it will be a lot easier to find a middle ground if your desire experiences and arousal levels and patterns look different. Any last tips you would give to folks who maybe aren't really aligning in what they want and how they want and how to share that with a partner?
I would say, number one, communication is key, but if you have like strong desires that aren't being met, like, talk to somebody about it and don't be a cheater, and I'm saying this from that standpoint because before I came out, I was, that's what I was doing. I had a partner that our sexualities weren't aligning, and there was things that I wanted to do in the bedroom that my partner. Excuse me?
And you didn't feel like you could talk about it?
Not that I couldn't talk about it. No, it just wasn't being met. So my desires weren't being met, and I was instead of just being like, well, hey, this isn't working out, I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna go and have my desires met. And what that did was it was not only hurtful for the partner that I had at the time, but it was also self-destructive on me because it really didn't do anything good for me, and I felt like a liar and like a terrible person. So the best thing that has happened to me in my entire life was being an open and honest person, and saying, hey, this is not something I want. This is not a way that I want to continue to live. And finding somebody that does have sexualities that I can come to compromises with, or that aligns perfectly. And I think that if you are having struggles like I was, it's probably good to be honest and open about it and honest with yourself and continue to look for happiness.
Yeah, 100% communication. You're not gonna know if something's gonna mesh well with the both of you unless you talk about it. And if you can't get something sexually from your partner and you're in an open relationship, speak with your partner to see if you can meet their needs. Like sometimes I'm like either tired or I don't have a cock, I don't have a real penis, so sometimes like we'll invite someone over, and that's okay. Like, as long as it's within your boundaries and you both talk about it and you're open, that's it's huge.
And you know what? Touching on that was also some somewhat responsive arousal, because there's been some times where like I'm getting fucked and I hear her moaning and I'm like, and the guy's like, is she okay in here? And she is going at it. She is mixing it like a DJ down there.
Yeah, like sometimes I don't want to like get involved. Sometimes I do want to get involved, but like other times I'll just maybe want to just masturbate to them fucking. Like everyone's so different. So maybe have a conversation with your partner. Don't automatically assume that they're going to rule something out. Just have that conversation. If it's not right for the both of you, then it's not right. So.
Yeah, and we could also be having so much more and better quality sex with partners and even ourselves. I think if we really broaden our definition of what sex can be. I have some colleagues who have I think they wrote a book called Sex Every Day or something like that. And that doesn't mean you have to have penetrative sex every day, but sort of if we can expand the definition of what sex means to create an entire menu of options, whether that be kissing, sensual massage, kink, spanking, penetration, pegging, whatever it is, if you can kind of have a big menu, then you have an opportunity to like negotiate with your partner of kind of like you're going out to dinner. Like, what do you feel like eating? I don't know. What do you feel like eating? And decide what you want to have that night. And maybe one of you wants a hamburger and the other wants sushi, and you can do that in the same room together, or you can do it in a separate room together, but then you have an opportunity to do a lot more if you really expand your definition of what sex and pleasure can mean. And you might find that then your libidos aren't so different. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Again, check out the rest of Camming Life videos if you would like to learn more. If you feel like you want to learn a little more on this subject, I definitely recommend reading the book Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski and checking out those erotic blueprint quizzes by Miss Jaya. But if I were to hopefully offer you one takeaway, it would be that there are so many diverse options for how our desire and arousal patterns can show up. So most likely you are normal. Last tip that I would give is if you really feel like you're struggling with like low desire and low arousal, and that feels new and different for you and you're not sure what's happening, I would always advise you to go to a sexual medicine specialist. This is a gynecologist or a urologist who specializes in sexual medicine, because sometimes there are things like hormones, vitamin deficiencies, aging, nerve things, stuff going on that can inhibit your desire and arousal patterns. And so if you are feeling concerned, definitely get it checked out by a sexual medicine specialist. And then if you're needing extra help, go to a sex therapist, somebody like me that can help you navigate that, because you don't have to do it by yourself. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.